Thank you for joining me here today in Henry's boardroom. Thank you, Henry, Chokbun, Darren, and Andre. So I'm just explaining the neurological levels of change and how I've used this as a framework to help my clients on my first roadmap session I do with clients. And the whole point of this is to give a structure to help them to understand how they can manipulate their world in a positive way and give them some direction and show them where to go to do the work. Because there's a million places we can do the work, but are we wasting our time or is it useful? So this is the structure, and this comes from Robert Dilts. A big triangle like this. It's got several levels to it, and it's called the logical levels of change or the neurological levels of change. And the very first part of it is called environment. Right, so it talks about your environment, where are things, who you're hanging around with, where are you going, where are you finding information. That's all for me is the environment, especially who you hang around with. That group of people is an environment, there's a culture to it. The next one above that is behavior or habit. Right, so what do you do every day? What are the little elements of your day? What are your routines? What are the habits that build up who you are? And then above that is your skills and your capabilities. Like I said, this was a model that I had ignored for about 3 years until I rediscovered it about 6 months ago. Above skills and capabilities, which is, what are you capable of? What do you know a lot about? What are you actually quite skilled in? Then above that comes belief and values. Now, these ones are big ones because if you think about it, I guess if we were to talk to someone who is skilled in a particular thing, or let's say Andre's skilled in landscaping, let's say, or Darren, I think you're in plumbing, aren't you, Darren?
That's correct.
Yeah, in plumbing. So you would have started off in the environment, probably learning plumbing as a tradie, as a young guy, and then you would have been every day doing that skill. And then you would have built up the skill with actual project work and some knowledge about the Australian standards and all of that sort of thing, that AS 3500, whatever it is you're working in. And then you'll have a belief that I'm good at this after you get feedback from your clients, right? You get feedback that it works, that you're successful at that thing. And then that forms an identity. Now, we actually have multiple identities within us, and they show up in different places in different ways. I think they also call them ego states. Some people talk about if you're playing a sport, you might have an ego state for that sport, and you might go to work, there's an ego state for that work, and there's at home, there might be an ego state there. And if you show up to the sports field with the wrong ego state, you're just off that day, not in that right frame of mind, because you brought the wrong identity to the party. So this is the structure which I helped this particular client, and she was not wanting to face up to past trauma. And so I thought, well, okay, I don't want you to face up to past trauma, but maybe we can help you form a new identity or start to shift towards this future that you're after. And, along the way, there'll probably be some healing, but the reality is there's a lot of focus that you can put into it. So in particular, this person wanted to move out of a particular property. So we talked about that environment. We talked about the behaviors if she wanted to move out of that property. We talked about what were the skills and the beliefs. And the conversation started to really yield a lot of value for her as we went up this tree. And so I'm actually thinking of a few other cases as I'm going, but I'll keep going with this example. So we started out with this future self. What environments do you need to be in to enjoy your life? And I think we talked about, for example, she enjoyed the arts world, right? So the arts world. So let's go and look for different groups who are in that environment. But if your identity is not on board yet with going down that path, it can actually stop you. If you've got the identity, let's say you're a smoker, and you say don't hang around smokers, you'll somehow find yourself at the shops buying a packet of ciggies, right? So it's that kind of, it's not enough. We have to get further up the chain. And so then we move up the chain and we looked at the behaviors. Well, at the moment, if you're going to the arts, the arts community and talking to artistic creative types, are you actually doing any of that right now? And the answer was no. Well, no, I'm not. Well, why not? Like, you enjoy the arts, you want to be involved in painting or writing or poetry or whatever the thing is. And so in the behavior of that, we need to get some more of that happening. So it's like behavior. So it's like, doing some writing, doing some painting, let's say. And if the answer is no, the question is, okay, well, I think we have to go further up the chain because you're not doing it. So then we go further up the chain and say, well, maybe you don't have the skill. Maybe you've not learned how to paint. And, you're about as talented as I am with my beautiful artwork here. And you need to go and get some lessons. So maybe you need to go and learn. So who could you learn off? Let's go off and learn something, like go to an artist school or something, at an art school or something like that. Or go and join a poetry society if that's your thing, right? If it's a creative sort of thing. But that also then leads us back down to environment as well. So locations of where you can go and do that, right? So we're sort of bouncing in this space at the moment. Or capabilities would assume that you've already learnt the skill and you're good at that thing. So then if there's something still blocking you, okay, we've got to keep going up the chain. And so we'll go up to the next one, and that is belief. What do you believe? Like, are you afraid of actually approaching those groups? Is there some sort of social anxiety going on? Is there something where you don't want to be bad at something? Because we all start off, we're really terrible at something when we're starting, but that's called learning. We all couldn't walk at some point, but we learned it and we weren't judging ourselves. So maybe there's a judgment. And as we know, there might be some sort of a self-judgment. There might be some sort of a fear. There might be some sort of, they're not allowing themselves. And now I'm just realizing I'm doing it all in red over here. And I think one of our esteemed teachers has said, not too much red on the screen. And so these are the beliefs. And then we jump up to identity. Who are you being? So who am I? So you might have I am statements, and you'd be looking out for I am statements from your clients. Say, well, I am this, or I'm just not good at that, or I am statements that are stopping them, or I just can't might be a belief that is fueling some sort of identity. So I am, or I just can't. Or equally, you might get a statement like, I can. Absolutely, I can do that. That's a belief. We haven't done it yet, whatever it might be. So I'm looking out for those statements. And as we come up this chain, and the reason why I love this is I've watched some of the neurological levels. There's a process that you can do where you have people step onto pieces of paper, which is each one of these. And it starts out quite shallow like this. And when we come back down the other side, and they get quite deep and they get a lot of clarity on what they are going to do next. And so this is where the value of the roadmap session is. Even by itself, they've got that first step ready to go in their mind by the time they finish. So then we get up to the top here. And then we get to the good stuff, purpose. What are the good things? What is the purpose of the arts? What is the purpose of the creative? What is the purpose of learning at art school? What's the purpose of, of the judgment even? Like is it because you really want to be good at it? Is there something you get from being an artist or wanting to learn the creative arts that's really important for you? And this is where you can ask, those just simple question, what's important about that? And they say, because I like the freedom. Or what's important about the freedom? Because it means that I get to be authentic. What's important about being authentic? Well, it means I don't have to worry about other people. And, the conversation, some people really interact and other people will hold back, but that's okay because there's lots of questions from it. So let's say the purpose was we had freedom, and you can see here, because I haven't even mentioned values over here, that's starting to get into value or authenticity, right? Because you're getting to be yourself, being authentic. Because it's growth, they might really enjoy growth, right? And then even at this point in the conversation, I can say to them, well, which one's the most important of these? If you had to number them 1, 2, 3, and of course I'll get a longer list than this, and they might say, look, freedom is number 1 for me. And that will be because of their life story. And what they're doing is they're telling you about what's inside their unconscious mind, what's memories and feelings are stored in their unconscious body, because to know that your unconscious mind is connected to your body via the vagus nerve, and you are storing old emotions in the body, and those old emotions are memories, and it's your unconscious mind trying to keep you safe, right? So freedom for that person's number 1 because something's going on in the past. So we've got to some purpose, and maybe it might be because they wanted to start an art school, right? There might be some art school or something like one day they get excited, or maybe it's contribution, right? Because that's what a school would do, contribution. And there'll be, you can see how the conversation, I'm just making this up on the fly, but these are the things that come out of people as we go. We're sort of moving into a bit of a more kind of a general context. So then we've done that. So you've got the purpose, you've got the let's say freedom was number 1, and let's say authenticity was 2, and 3 was growth, and 4 was, say, contribution. So that's the language now to come back down the other side and sort of do some more investigation. So we can even go into the future almost over here. And this is another way I've heard this thing framed. One side is the soul, and the other one is the ego. And we have to balance them out. Now, I haven't really written it like that up this side, but that's what this thing does. It starts to balance you out, because if you have too much soul and you're all giving away, you get depleted as a person. You're totally out of balance. But if you go on the other side and you go all ego, where it's all about me, and you have absolutely no soul, and there's a balance that you've got to find in the middle between the two. And that was a video I just watched recently from Robert Dilts studying it, because I'm going to use this in a speech myself at a networking event very soon, as a way to help these people, or a whole bunch of business people, to reconnect with what's their next best step. Why are they stuck? Where are they stuck on this little ladder? So I've gone up this side, and now I come back down, and I come back down the other side. And then we keep talking. It's all right. So your purpose is freedom, authenticity, growth, contribution. And I am this, I am that. We've got beliefs. We've got some values over here. Skills and capabilities. We might need to learn some things. You've got behaviors and habits. Maybe we've got to do some things on a more regular basis. And the environments that we're in. Now, before we come back down the other side, I say, well, are you doing these things now? Often the answer is no, or 10% of the time. So maybe if you did it 20% of the time, because we can't say quit everything and go and paint in a field. No, we can't give up everything. We have to balance it out. So it's like, well, what if you did it another 10% of the time? Like you picked 2 hours of the week where you start to find the environments, the behaviors, the skills. And in here, which is the first thing you would do? Do you have the skill? If you do, because some people have got the skill. There was one particular lady I know who's incredible at sales. She'd been in the environment. She knew the behaviors and what she had to do. She knew the skills, but she was stuck and she wouldn't move forward. And so we had to move into some beliefs and identity, because there was something going on in here. And so we explored her values, actually. And when we explored her values, because she is a master at these. So it's not like she doesn't know how to sell, but she wants to keep going with her business, but no motivation. So it's like, okay, what do we do? So we looked at her values as to what motivated her. And when we went through the list, I said, are you getting these, let's say it's these ones now? And she said, no, I'm not. And I said, well, it's any wonder you're a bit down. You got no social because you're in lockdown. Your business, you're too afraid to sort of get into it because you're not sure if you'll be able to. You weren't getting your top 4 values. All of them were gone. Of course you're down. You had no outlet anywhere. So I know, of course. Oh, it makes so much sense. So then we came back down the other side. And we came down to identity, and we just asked some more questions. Well, who are you being right now? So who are you being now? And who are you being in your ideal self? Right? The one that is going to be, let's go down the arts route, ideal self. And we have a conversation about that. Well, who would you be? What would you be doing? What beliefs would you have? What values would you have? What skills or capabilities would you need to have to be that ideal self, whatever that vision is? And what we're doing here is we're building a future vision of herself. We're building a future vision. And for the first time, perhaps ever, she is focusing, or since she was a kid maybe, she's focusing on a future identity. And that is the beginning of growth. That is the beginning. If you have no vision, how excited about you are in the future? I ask all of you here, if you're excited about the future, have you got a vision or don't you? You've got a vision?
Yeah.
But I get excited, as you can tell. I get a bit of a roll on. And so you have to have a vision. That's what depression is. That's what anxiety is. There's no vision. The vision is actually looking backwards in the past. And so this is why I love this as a conversation. And they basically spill the whole beans as to what they want and what they are missing and what's the gap in between. So we have a conversation about identity, and they can say, well, yeah, there's a few gaps going on and there's places, things that I could certainly do differently. And we come back down. Are there any values that you would want your ideal self to have, or beliefs? And maybe the belief might be it's easy to enroll in an art school and that I'll be loved and nurtured there, and that I'll get freedom, I'll get authenticity, I'll get growth, and I'll get contribution to overcome any fears they may have on, a fear or a judgment of being judged when they walk in the room. Now, as we know in NLP, as we know in healing, and as we know in what we do, if there's a judgment or a fear for doing something that's going to give you all your values, then we have to clear it out of the system with a timeline or a belief change or a strategy scramble or something. There'll be something that we can do to help them offset that. So then we come down a little bit further and we come down to skills and capabilities. Are there any, now that we've talked about all of this, are there any other skills and capabilities that you need to learn to take this next step? Do you need to learn how to meditate to calm yourself down before you go to your arts class? Or is there something completely because this conversation would yield a lot of things, and you get them to answer along the way. So you are unpacking their unconscious mind. So they might say, well, I need to have maybe a belief over here of, let's say, I will get my 1 to 4 values over here met. I'll get freedom, authenticity, growth, and you can keep repeating the word freedom for them to say, well, will you? You will get that? Great. And the values they might have, maybe they need to value their time a little bit better so they can actually and schedule it in and get it in there, and a little bit of self-love in trying to get these things. The capabilities, maybe it's the capability of, finding a place to go and get that they resonate with, where they can learn the art, etc. So maybe it's, searching, they might decide. Or maybe there's other things that will come to mind for them. And then the habits, well, obviously, once you've got into the right community, you can see how the habits, it's a lot easier when you've got friends who you're accountable to and you've got a group. So the habit might be joining a group of people. It might be free, like a meetup or something, of artists, right? And they might have something in their area. And then the environment, well, you need to have 4 friends, whatever they are, and if they're artists, you will be the 5th, right? So if you've got 4 friends, you'll become the 5th. So you want to pick some people, and even if you can't spend as much time as they do, by unconscious osmosis, you will absorb their stuff. And then we have a conversation about what we've just had here. We've got, all right, so what are the environments you need to be in? What are the behaviors? What are the habits? What are the skills? What are the capabilities? What are the beliefs? What are the values? What identity would you need to be? And let's remind ourselves of the purpose. They want to start an art school, or they want to have freedom, authenticity, and growth. Then we come back down the other side and just do a cross-check on this, because you also want to check with the reality of their life. They might have kids, they might have responsibilities. So it's not as simple as I'm going off to, France to paint in a field. I've got kids, I've got family. And so how can you weave this more into your life so you can get some of this in and structure it into your week? And then we say, and our first session that we would do is we would make sure we get the biggest block removed. And the biggest block for you, for what you said today, is there's a lot of judgment and there's a lot of fear around even starting this process. So if this is important to you, that's the first thing we would do. We would also do some work on the beliefs. We get clear on the values, do a little bit more work on this so you know exactly where you have to be. We'll look at the skills and capabilities and perhaps go through a thing called the GROW model to understand exactly how we can break this down into further steps. And then obviously there'll be some behaviors and habits and environments that I'd like to see you in, or you would like to see you in. And that would come across, a 6-week program that we effectively would work together. But the very first thing I do is let's clear out some blocks. And then from that, we'll probably reveal some other things that we need to work on. And I don't know what's inside you. I take a let's see strategy. Let's see, I've got no idea. And then from that together, we can come up with a plan, and you can see this is the structure, and you can identify where your thinking might be working and where it's not. If you're in the right environments, if you've got some good behaviors, you've got some skills, but then you're blocked, come one level up, and then everything filters down from there. You change your beliefs and your skills will start to change, because you'll find those skills. Your behaviors will start to change, and so will your environment. And so that is the neurological levels of change and how I would run a first session with a client. Over to you, Henry.